I feel like I open every Jutsu explained video with this exact line, but today we're talking about a jutsu that is very powerful, very notorious, and very misunderstood. But then again, if things weren't as easily misunderstood as they were from Naruto, I wouldn't have a job. Well, I guess I would have a job, but I'd still be working in biotech. Today we're talking about the 100 healings, also known as the strength of 100 seal. But before we get to healing anything, guys, how about we get to using our strength as a community to get this video up in likes and views and all that by liking this video, subscribing to the page, and hitting that noti bell. Before we get into all that, guys, we have a new sponsor I want to tell you guys about, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online database filled with thousands of classes to help you learn everything from mindfulness to animation. And many of these classes are free. I know we all entered quarantine hoping to learn new skills, but with Skillshare, that just got way easier. Take my experience, for example. I knew I wanted to grow big on YouTube, so I looked to Skillshare for classes on how to teach me to do that. And that's where I found a class called YouTube Success, Script, Shoot, and Edit with MBKHD. This class was instrumental in me understanding how best to leverage my own YouTube growth. I mean, not to brag, just hit 135,000 subscribers. And the craziest bit is you can get access to all of these classes with a free trial. So maybe you took a creative year off in 2021. Skillshare can help you make 2022 a year about growth, development, all through the means of creativity. I mean, hey, maybe you're upset at the way that shows like 7 Deadly Frames are animated, and because of that, you want to learn animation. Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography and illustration to graphic design, there is thousands of courses that can help you achieve the specific skills you're looking for. And better yet, you can take them at your own pace, which will help you fulfill your goals and your interests at a timeline you're comfortable with. So guys, what are you waiting for? The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free month trial to Skillshare. I mean, come on, weebs. This is the beginning of your training arc. So let's start this video off in the way we tend to start these videos off, by answering the easy question. What is the 100 Heal Seal? It's a massive grouping of chakra that a user accumulates over years that they can tap into in emergency situations. But how do you accrue this chakra? How do you tap into it? How long has it been alive? What kind of powers does it grant you? We're gonna answer all these questions. But before we get to talking about the actual Byakuya seal, let's talk about what it's based on. Byakuya in Japanese translates literally to white hair, fine white hair to be exact. And that might seem weird, but it's important for a reason. You see, Buddha has a swirl of fine white hair on his forehead in Buddhism. And this is represented in art or in statues through a spiral or a dot. It can even be depicted as a gem or a pearl. And essentially, it's meant to represent the third eye that allows one to see beyond the mundane human world and into the spirit of the divine. This is a theme that we see throughout Naruto, with the Otsutsukis opening their third eye in their forehead. But I know what you're saying, Nick.
The 100 healing seal is black, and what you're talking about is a white mark.
And here's the thing, it wasn't always black. In fact, in the initial release of the Shonen Jump chapters in the Shonen Jump book in Japan, that's right, in Japan, you buy a weekly Shonen Jump manga that has the chapters of all Shonen Jump manga, the Byakuya seal was identified as the white strength seal, and it was white. But when the actual manga volume was released, manga volume number 66, the Byakuya seal was black. So who created the Byakuya seal? How did it come to be? And what are its connections to Kama in Boruto? Well, for a long time before the advent of Boruto, it was theorized that Mito Uzumaki was the creator of the Byakuya seal. This is because Mito Uzumaki had a very similar symbol to Tsunade on her forehead, except unlike Tsunade, her diamond was purple while Tsunade's was black. It also appeared to come out of her skin like it was a gem on her forehead, as opposed to Tsunade's, which is more like a tattoo. But since we're talking about Tsunade, that brings us to the other theory. It was that Tsunade created it. This is because we have no physical proof or evidence that Mito was even a holder of a Byakuya seal, let alone created it. And people believe that Tsunade modeled the appearance of the Byakuya seal after her grandmother's gem, which wouldn't be the craziest thing of all time because she's the only person we'd ever seen use it before Sakura, and those two are related, Mito and Tsunade. But Boruto actually proved both of these theories incorrect. When Sarada is running around the village trying to ascertain what the Kama marking is, she runs to her mother Sakura, who she asks about this 100 healing seal. She asks because she believes that there's a connection between the Byakuya seal and the Kama marking, because of their similarities in appearance and their strength. And when you think about it, the way that a 100 healing seal extends from the diamond in their forehead all over the body is very similar to the way that a Kama marking extends. And it's at this point that Sakura tells us that the Byakuya seal is from the era of Hagoromo, meaning that the seal has been around for thousands of years, and that more likely than not, it was probably either Hagoromo or Hamura who created it, or one of their very close descendants, which makes sense when you think about the delicate amount of chakra control you need to maintain the Byakuya seal, let alone create it. So unfortunately, we don't know who made it. We just know when it was made. But now that we know its origin story, let's talk about what it does. This is one of the hardest jutsus on Earth to learn, and this is why usually only medical ninja use it. Medical ninjutsu requires you have incredibly precise chakra control. Think of how a surgeon has to have an incredibly steady hand, otherwise their scalpel would shake. Being a medical ninja is very similar. You have to know exactly where to apply chakra on somebody's body in order to seal a wound, stop blood flowing, these kinds of things. And because of this, only those with the most precise kind of chakra control become medical ninjas. The Byakuya seal is that times 1,000. Think of the Byakuya seal as a swimming pool, and every day you are allocated 2 gallons of water to accomplish whatever tasks you need in the day. And at the end of every single day, you still have a half gallon of water left. So you pour that half gallon of water into the swimming pool. Eventually, that swimming pool will fill, but it will take a very long time, like 3 years, a long time. Why do I say 3 years? Because that's how long it took Sakura to fill her Byakuya seal for the first time. So essentially, users of this technique choose a spot on their bodies to store all of this extra chakra. And we've only ever seen people choose to store it on their forehead, but it can be put anywhere else. You could put it on your big toe, for example. But the thing is, they put it on their forehead because that is the place most likely not to get lopped off. Think of it a bit like this. If you put it on your hand like a comma marking, if your arm got cut off, you would lose access to all of that chakra because that's no longer connected to your brain and your chakra network. But if you are cut in half, like let's say Tsunade, as long as you still have your head intact, you can access that chakra. So let's say in the worst case scenario here, hypothetically Sakura or Tsunade were decapitated. While we've never seen this and most likely never will, it is entirely possible that they could survive it, which officially makes them capable of being an Upper Moon and Demon Slayer. So just like real estate, location is very important. So you've spent 3 years pouring this half gallon of water into the swimming pool, and now it's full. Now what? Well, obviously you can activate the seal and have all of this chakra increase the mitotic regeneration of your cells to the point where you can be killed 100 times and fully recover, but there's also something else. There's kind of a passive buff that happens once your Byakuya seal is filled. When a Byakuya seal user completely fills that pool, they can perform techniques with no wasted energy. Think of it like this. Essentially, let's say Sasuke has the Byakuya seal and it's completely filled. Without the Byakuya seal, he could do 50 fireball jutsus before running out of chakra. But with a filled Byakuya seal, he could do 60, because having a filled Byakuya seal makes you as efficient as possible in all of your ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu techniques. This is because once the user of the Byakuya seal has filled that seal, they can use their incredibly precise chakra control to do things perfectly. But yes, obviously the big thing is releasing it. I mean, this is 3 years worth of chakra, right? So obviously releasing it is gonna do something important. And that something important that it does is sciencey, interestingly enough. Mitosis is when one cell splits into 2. It's usually talked about in regards to giving birth to a child, because you start as 1 cell and then you split into 2 and then you become 4 and so on and so forth until a baby is made. But it is also how your body does a ton of things. Using pluripotent cells or epigenetic signaling allows your body to start the process of mitosis. Essentially, your body can tell a cell to divide and divide and divide and make identical copies of itself. Let's say you cut a gash out of your arm. Now that part of your arm is gone, which means it needs to get filled with new arm cells. So your body will send cells there to mitotically regenerate and thus create new cells that will fill that gash. And this is essentially what the Byakuya seal does. And this is what people in the Naruto universe do to heal because they're humans, but what the Byakuya seal does is speed up the process thousands of times over, to the point where in Sakura Hiden, Sakura's light novel, she had her arm ripped off by a Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and she just shot out a new one. My only problem with that is like it's not really mitotic regeneration at that point because like humans can generate new limbs, but that's neither here nor there. And when the seal is released, the markings will begin to spread across the face of the user, a lot like how Wakanda Hashirama spreads down the arm of a user, and all of the chakra that they put into this pool is released into their chakra circulatory system. And you thought 8 gates gave you a lot of chakra. No, 8 gates just gives you access to 100% of your own chakra. This is 3 years worth of saved chakra. If 8 gates is running as fast as you humanly can, then the 100 heal seal is strapping a rocket to your back. And once this seal is activated, obviously, yes, you can heal super fast, but also there is just a ton of chakra in your system. It powers up your ninjutsu, your genjutsu, your taijutsu. You are hundreds of times stronger than you were previously. We know this because when Sakura activates it for the first time in the war arc and just starts punching Ten Tails clones, Hashirama says, wow, she's terrifying, even more terrifying than Tsunade when she activates hers. We've also seen Tsunade get massively more powerful upon activation. But yes, let's get to the reason why it's called the Strength of 100 seal. Well, one, it does make you 100 times stronger, just like the 8th gate is hypothesized to. The 8th gate is said to make you 100 times stronger than you are in your base form. And it's also said to be able to heal you from the brink of death 100 times. But here's the thing, that was told to us by Tsunade, who we know continually uses the chakra in this pool to maintain a youthful appearance. And don't for a second think that this is some small feat. It's not. Tsunade essentially at all points in her life has to reverse engineer her own cells to make them younger. She is essentially casting a full medical ninjutsu on her entire body every second of every day. Doing this without the Byakuya seal would be almost impossible, but also means that the amount of chakra she can keep in her Byakuya seal is significantly limited, which means that Sakura, the only true user of the unlimited potential of the Byakuya seal, should be our watermark. So if Tsunade thinks she's 100 times stronger after the activation of the seal and can also come back from the brink of death 100 times, what can Sakura do? I don't know for sure, but to assume that it is a lot more than what Tsunade can do is not a stretch, because I will restate, Hashirama said that himself. So if it's this powerful, why don't more people know it? It's a great question. It's because it's almost impossible to learn. I don't mean like Rasengan level hard to learn, Sage mode hard to learn. It's significantly harder than both of those things. So hard, in fact, that Shizune, Tsunade's assistant, wasn't able to learn it herself. This is Shizune, who has yin-yang release. She is one of 3 people in the show capable of a yin-yang release, if you don't count Izanami and Izanagi. Shizune's medical prowess is so impressive, she can use yin-yang release to create cells from her imagination. Remember how I said your body can send a signal to create certain cells and then they will create identical clones of each other? Shizune can do that with her chakra. She can grow you a new arm. Do you know how complicated that is? You have to do blood vessels, muscles, bones, skin, all of these things. Shizune can do that. She is arguably the 3rd best healer in the history of Naruto. Her chakra control is not good enough to learn the Byakuya seal. We learned that in the same chapter that I've been taking all of these points from. So no, Naruto could not learn it. So no, Sasuke could not learn it. Rock Lee could not learn it. This is a thing that people don't realize about Sakura. She is arguably the best in the verse at chakra control, and Tsunade is probably 2nd. I mean, Sakura can literally catch ninjutsu by applying chakra to her hand and throw it back. Nobody else in the verse can do that. So this brings us to the point of, will Sarada get it? And while obviously if Sarada got the Byakuya seal in combination with her Mangekyo Sharingan, that would be incredible. She would be able to use the Byakuya seal to heal the damage done to her eyes by activating her MS, therefore negating the need for an EMS. But there's a small problem there. And while this was an anime canon arc, Sarada is shown to be terrible at medical ninjutsu. She tried to heal a fish, just like everyone made a joke that Sakura did, but she burnt it. Instead of applying the appropriate medical ninjutsu to it, she literally cooked it, implying that her chakra control is anything but good. This doesn't mean she won't be able to use Chidori and other things like that. It just means she's not suited for medical ninjutsu, which is great. Let's not have every single woman have to be a healer, but at the same time, it means more likely than not, she will not have the prowess to use the Byakuya seal. Unless, I don't know, she decides to do a training arc with Sakura, in which case that'd be awesome, yay. But for the current moment, that doesn't look like that's gonna happen. But here's to being optimistic. But there's something else that comes along with the Byakuya seal that isn't incredible strength or incredible healing, and that's Lady Katsuyo. Users of the Byakuya seal are always linked to Lady Katsuyo in some way or another. And while this is likely because the only people who can learn the Byakuya seal are healers, and Lady Katsuyo is the healing summon, There's also the possibility that Lady Katsuyo's slug clan were the people that created the Byakuya seal. Obviously, large animals have been on the earth for as long as Hagoromo's been around. I mean, Hagoromo himself trained under the toads. And we know that the Byakuya seal has been on earth since the era of Hagoromo. But here's the thing, that's just where human recollection begins. It's entirely possible that the Byakuya seal was around long before Hagoromo and existed in the slug clan. But why do I say all of this? How is this Byakuya seal linked to Lady Katsuyo? Well, one, Lady Katsuyo is so massive that without activating the Byakuya seal, you cannot summon even half of her. Tsunade and Sakura combined their Byakuya seal strength and summoned 70% of her in the war arc. That is 2 people who have their strength of 100 seal activated for this summoning. But on top of that, how much chakra you have in your reserve is directly proportional to the strength of Lady Katsuyo's techniques. If you have a full Byakuya seal, Lady Katsuyo can split into millions of little slugs and act as a cell phone or a healer to all of those people. But if you're low on chakra, so is she. But why would there be a connection there? For all other summoning animals, the summoner and the summoned don't share chakra. Lady Katsuyo and the Byakuya seal are the only people that show a proportional change. So why? Also, obviously take into account the fact that Lady Katsuyo is able to put people who have been bisected back together using her immense healing abilities, and the Byakuya seal is able to do that as well. So we have a proportional change in chakra linked between these two things and similar abilities. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? And that is all we got on the Byakuya seal. I accidentally slipped a couple more theories in there than I wanted to. I just got to flowing. And if you liked this freestyle-esque video, please guys, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, I'm not gonna say I'd rather have the Byakuya seal than 8 gates, but one heals you, one kills you.